Chapter 6. Too excited to eat, I skipped breakfast the next day. Instead, I stayed in my room, repeatedly rehearsing what I was going to say dozens of times in front of my mirror. "Papa, I've fallen in love with Rhys, and we want your blessing." Papa loved me too much to do anything like order me not to marry Rhys. Even if Rhys wasn't the wealthy courtier Papa had in mind for my future husband, I knew he wanted me to be happy. Once he saw how in love Rhys and I were, I felt sure he would agree. I continued to rehearse what I was going to say until I heard a knock at the mill's front door. This was it. I fixed my hair and straightened out my dress, straining to hear Rhys's voice. I couldn't pick out his tone. Instead, several men's voices floated up from downstairs, and I sighed in disappointment. It wasn't Rhys after all, probably just customers coming to buy flour. The voices continued for much longer than the typical transaction. I couldn't imagine what the customer would be purchasing that took so long. Many people knew that festival week was a difficult time for Papa, so perhaps some of his friends had arrived to try to cheer him up. I stared out of the window, trying to catch a glimpse of Rhys headed this way, but saw nothing other than the back wheels of a fine carriage parked outside the front of the mill. Whoever was downstairs needed to leave. Why would they pick today of all days to be extra chatty? I looked down at my ring and smiled, rotating it around my thumb. Rhys had done a wonderful job creating it. The band was beautifully woven, much prettier than any other ring I had ever seen. The sunlight filtering through the window reflected a warm glow, but that was nothing compared to what I felt. Rhys wanted to marry me. Footsteps clattered up the staircase to my small attic bedroom. Papa burst through the door, a look of wild elation in his eyes that was so at odds to his normal gloomy demeanor during festival week that I stared. Before I could utter a word, Papa gasped, "Meg, come down quickly. It's the king." The curse compelled my feet to dash across the room to the top of the stairs. Papa continued in a low hiss, "He heard about you and wanted to meet you." My heart sank. No, I didn't want the king. I wanted Rhys. "But, Papa," I began. "Tell me later, darling. Right now, you go meet the king. Remember, be charming. This is your chance to become royalty. Don't look so somber. Smile." A winning smile was forced onto my lips, and I sank into a deep curtsy the second I entered the store's front room. There was King Drupert. It was probably fortunate that my curse forced me to behave charmingly. I may have run screaming from the room otherwise. It wasn't that Drupert was old or ugly by any measure. He was actually the youngest and handsomest of any of my suitors to date. It was the palpable aura of arrogance and greed about him that made me want to get as far away from him as I could. The most disconcerting thing about this man was the way his beady eyes flitted around the room, hungrily assessing the value of anything and everything in sight. The second I stepped into view, King Drupert's eyes scanned me up and down, then fixated on my thumb. In a flash, he was beside me, covetously stroking Rhys's ring. I tried to pull my hand away, but I was stopped by Drupert's shockingly strong grip. "Well now," he crooned, "what have we here?" I could smell his foul breath and tried to lean away from him, resisting the curse's pull to obey Papa's command as best I could. But its hold was too powerful. I looked around for help, but Papa was still puffing his way down the stairs, and Drupert's guards were still doing the ridiculous thing men always did when I first met them, of staring open-mouthed at my figure without examining my facial expression at all. Drupert leered unpleasantly at me. "Tell me, sweetness, where did you get this ring?" I would never betray Rhys. "I found it," I lied easily, still smiling in the most charming way possible. "Pretty, isn't it?" Drupert shook his head, a shrewd look overtaking his features. "Nice try, missy. But I have heard rumors of a woman who has the ability to spin straw into gold. Some girl in this town with mounds of golden thread on spools. This ring is made from the same material.
It is you, isn't it? You made this."
"No." I thought back to when Benedict had noticed the golden thread and ground my teeth in frustration. Of course he would talk about the novelty of the gold to his men, and of course word would get back to the king. How stupid I had been to let the gold slip out so Benedict could see it. How naive of me to think of him as anything that resembled a friend. Every one of Drupert's teeth showed when he grinned. His long black hair, oiled so that it shone even in the dimmest light, was tied back into a ponytail at the nape of his neck, which flipped slightly from side to side as he gave a meaningful glance to the soldiers flanking the door. Papa reappeared in the room just in time to hear Drupert croon,
"Just my luck to discover such a talented, beautiful woman. She is exactly the sort of girl I had hoped to wed."
He snapped his fingers at one of the soldiers accompanying him, who pulled out a heavily decorated band of silver and gemstones. The soldier held it out to Drupert, who slid it onto the ring finger of my left hand.
"I will take this woman for my bride."
Papa was beside himself with delight.
"Maggie, did you hear that? You are going to marry the king."
He pulled me aside and added in a whisper,
"He isn't old or ugly either. Meg, this is everything I ever dreamed of for you. You will want for nothing."
I heard him, but I still didn't believe it. Never once had I been asked what I wanted. Was Papa so thrilled at the prospect of a daughter becoming royalty that he never even stopped to think about what I wanted? I felt like I had been bought. In many ways, I had been. Charming smile still in place, I turned to my father. "Papa, I need to talk to you, now." Drupert latched his arm around my shoulders, cinching me into his side in a possessive grip.
"What is there to talk about? Wedding preparations? Those can all be arranged. Allow me to show you the castle, dearest. I will send a carriage for your father and your things in a day or so. You don't mind, do you?" he asked Papa over my head. "I have a delegation from Ibora later this afternoon, so we really must be off soon."
"Papa!" My voice cracked under the strain of behaving charmingly while still trying to convey my desperation to talk to him in private. "I need to talk to you."
"Of course every bride-to-be is nervous," Drupert laughed, squeezing my shoulders. "Tell you what, dear, let's set you up in a nice room and invite your father up for tea, and you can tell him everything you want. I'll even arrange for an orchestra if you like." "That sounds lovely," Papa said, and fixed me with a questioning expression, clearly puzzled by my insistence on talking to him when I was beaming as if there was no greater delight than marrying the king. "Go with him, Meggie, and meet me for tea there. Tell me everything then. Just be yourself, and I will see you soon." Go with him. The curse took hold of my feet and propelled me out the door. I fought with every fiber of my soul to pull away from the king, to run from the house, but I found myself unable to do anything but numbly obey. Even as my mind whirled with a desperation to find a loophole in Papa's order, I was escorted out against my will into the king's waiting coach. This cannot be happening, I thought. I wasn't supposed to get engaged to the king or anyone else, not after all I had done to prepare for my official engagement to Rhys. Any words that might have come to mind were overpowered by the heavy weight of numb disbelief, and the driving force of my curse compelling me to obey Papa's order to go with the king. Just as I was being handed up into the ornate coach, I saw Rhys approaching the shop, carrying a bouquet of hand-picked wildflowers. Though his face still had traces of the bruising from Hrothgar's attack, Rhys's hair was neatly combed, and he had put in great effort to sew up the many holes in his worn-out, threadbare clothing. I tried to scream at him to help me, but my voice disappeared. He noticed the coach just as the coachman cracked his whip. Rhys and I locked eyes for the briefest of moments. I saw the bouquet of flowers fall to the ground as Rhys began to run after the coach, but the horses were too swift, and he was torn from my view.
"Meg!" I heard him call out. I pressed my hand to the glass of the carriage and craned my neck, but all I could see was one of the guard's uniforms, where he clung to the side of the coach, trundling along. I slumped back in my seat and refused to cry.
"Now, my dear,"
the king's honeyed voice, sticky and overly sweet, oozed into my ears.
"you will see your father again soon enough. Don't you worry your pretty little head about that. We will invite him to our wedding, shall we?"
I lifted my chin. Papa's final order to just be myself had released me from my feigned charm and overly wide smile. Cursed or not, I could still drive off any suitor I chose to. "My lord, please understand there has been a misunderstanding. Although your offer is generous, I have no desire to marry you. I'm in love with someone else." I pulled off his ring and held it out to him. "I beg you to reconsider." Drupert leered at me, revealing 2 rows of yellowed teeth. He didn't take the proffered ring. Instead, he continued in his sickly sweet voice.
"Darling, quite frankly, I don't care whether you want to marry me or not. I am your king, and I get to choose whomever I desire. You will give me several things I want, which is why I selected you. Whether you do so willingly or unwillingly is entirely up to you. But let me make myself quite plain. I always get what I want. Now put the ring back on before I have my guard remove 1 finger at a time until you comply."
The horror of his words didn't match the honeyed tones of his voice, and the disparity, more than the words themselves, was what terrified me. My hands trembled as I shakily replaced the ring. Papa never would have agreed to this match if he knew what this man was like. But then again, I reasoned, I doubted this monster would care about a father's blessing. He would have taken me away no matter what. I refused to look at my repulsive fiancé. I folded my arms tightly and stared out the window. I didn't want to speak to the wretched man who was destroying my life. I couldn't think of any words wicked enough to describe him, though several choice phrases came to mind that would have made Papa stagger in shock.
"Oh, come now, dear," King Rupert tried again. "I am offering to marry you. Don't you feel lucky?"
I rounded on him, glaring as fiercely as I could. "Not in the slightest. You are a pig, and you revolt me." I expected Drupert to get upset. I even hoped he would. But he didn't. He chuckled throatily and stroked a finger across his mustache, oiled to match his hair.
"I like a woman with some fight in her. I think we will get along just fine, dearest."
I wanted to vomit. The coach whisked along to the palace, a lonely fortress on the seashore several miles beyond our town. On clear days, Rhys and I were able to climb trees and see the highest turret in the distance. Back then, it had always seemed so majestic and beautiful. Now that I was looking at it up close, I hated it. I hated how high up on the cliff top it sat, built into the rocky outcropping rising from the surf, as if it was too good to be on the same level as the rest of the kingdom. When Drupert held out a hand to me to help me out of the carriage, I swatted it away. "Don't touch me!" Drupert smiled nastily, then shouted,
"The guard!"
One of the guards came trotting up and bowed.
"See to it that we get some straw up to the topmost tower. This lovely lady has agreed to spin some gold for me."
I can't," I stammered. "I told you that." The king seized my right hand and fingered Rhys's promise ring.
"I disagree. I think you can."
"I can't. If I could, don't you think I would be living a lifestyle far more lavish than that of a miller's daughter?" I tried to wrench my hand out of Drupert's grasp, but he merely laughed. I could smell his putrid breath and gagged. He waited until I was pulling my hardest to extricate myself from his grasp, then released me so that I staggered back and collapsed to the ground. I clambered to my feet and tried to make my legs work. I wanted to run away. It was time to make good on Rhys's offer to run away together and get married. As I tried, I realized that my curse had greater hold on me than I expected. Papa had said that I should go with the king and wait to have tea. I wasn't able to move my body away from the castle. Drupert was watching me with shrewd, calculating eyes.
Your father was right. You are incredibly obedient. How fortunate for me.
I wanted to scream. I needed to break my curse now. I struggled internally, doing everything I could to evict my obedience from my body. It was useless. I was cursed far beyond what I could undo myself. A small cluster of guards and servants were watching my and Drupert's interaction. I spoke in a low, rushed voice to Drupert. "Fine. Put me in a room full of straw. In the morning, you will still have a room full of straw. I can't spin straw into gold. It is impossible."
Drupert sniffed. "If that is the case, I will have no further use for you, and you will die. Simple as that. What use would I have for another pretty face that serves no other purpose? You are easily replaceable, my dear."
It felt as though I had been hit over the head with an iron frying pan. Simple as that? This man was a lunatic. I was merely a tool to him, easily disposed of. Drupert flicked his hand at me.
"Take her away."
"No! No! No!" I dug my heels into the ground, screaming and fighting the guards for all I was worth, all sense of dignity forgotten. Drupert's jeering laughter behind me rang in my ears, all the way up to the tower.